Haldeman.
Megan Price.
Rachel Pearson.
So, Renee, why don't you start us off on question 7 then?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so question 7, what role did the government policy and religious freedom play in the fight of the slave trade? Did you see their political system being pro-family? Why or why not? Answer all questions. It seemed to me that the government and the policy that paid in the fight of the slave trade needed to be changed, just because the government didn't want to make any changes initially. Their policy was, let's make money and we're not going to restrict anybody. And so it was not shocking, obviously, that that they were so anti having this change. They were not pro-family. They were very individually based, their ideals. And so going back to that comment that we talked about yesterday a little bit, the opposition, they stood up at one point during testimonies and shared statistics that most slaves have their own little garden, and that obviously was a false. They were trying to paint a false picture. They were trying to paint a picture of things going well, but it was actually a false, bad. What's it called? Bad research. Sorry. They wanted to mention that just to justify their policies. So if the slaves didn't have the right to life, then they didn't have the right to worship freely either. They didn't even have the right to have a family or stay with their family. So there's an example in Wilbur's, his old family friend who was in the slave trade business. I know his first name is John, but I can't remember but the guy who was living a life of a monk, or tried to at least. But he worked and dealt with slaves like they were non-human, and he couldn't even forgive himself. After living that life, he, got rid of all of his stuff and tried to be very simplistic and be very penitent. And something that was very interesting to me in the movie was, he said, "Now I am blind, but I can see." And that's when he was dictating his life history to the scribe, so that it can be documented, all of the things that he went through and had. So people can learn from that. And then obviously I talked about this, the political system was not pro-family. They were very individually based, and they were pro-consumerism more than anything. So that's what I had to say.
Awesome. Well, I started off with a scripture, D&C 134:3, which says, "We believe that all governments necessarily require civil officers and magistrates to enforce the laws of the same, and that such will administer the law, and equity and justice should be sought for and upheld by the voice of the people, if a republic, or the will of the sovereign." So I then talked about the meeting of the first bill that Wilbur tried to push through, because he got in the big confrontation with the other man about the fact that he's not speaking up for the voice of the people, because he had all these signatures, and this was obviously the voice of the people. So the government was working against the voice of the people for their own financial gain. And as far as religious freedom, they allowed the preachers to preach whatever they wanted. So like the preacher wasn't arrested for preaching the abolition. However, they kept using the policy of abolitionists, the policy of, the traitors and stuff in war against the abolitionists, to threaten that they were too radical and threatening for a revolution. So they bent the policy in their favor to avoid the bill even longer. And then I talked about their system was not pro-family. They promoted the slave trade, which took women, men, and children from their homes, separated them, and sold them for profit. It did not care for the basic human rights that all people deserve, not just the British or the white.
Okay, I guess I'm the black sheep of the group. I felt that the government, that it was working in the sense that the debate was able to press on. They didn't, like you said, they didn't put anybody in jail, fine them for speaking their mind. So there was that part of it that was working right, and the religious freedom. Definitely their policies were flawed, but all of them came together in the end. The government, their policies, and religious freedom, so that it could bring about the end of the slave trade. And also, I kind of went the other way as far as I think I overthought it on the pro-family side. Because I was just thinking, Britain, they're the ones with the royals, so of course family is important to them. And it might not have come out in this movie in the sense, but I think it did in the sense, what have we learned throughout the semester? Government only works when family is a priority. And I do believe that their government was working, even though there was backwards people in that valued their lives more than slaves. That doesn't mean that they still weren't, family wasn't still important to them. Because I think if it hadn't have been, they would have attacked Wilberforce and the others on that front as well. The fact that they all made family their priority. So I kind of took a different turn on that. I did think that it was pro-family just because of what we have learned, thinking of Great Britain in and of itself and how their government works. So.
Well, thank you.
I was gonna say I love that little turn that you made. That was really I love that. That was really good. I like that perspective. Good job. Yeah.
I know that's I think with this, what we talked about before with the HOA groups, we get everyone's perspective, and all of us are right. That's the same. I think that's what's great about this. So I'm going to move on to question 8. So do you feel that Wilbur used his time on earth well? How do you see him showing the elements of consecration that Elder Christofferson spoke of? So I took just one of the portions of Elder Christofferson's talk that says, every day, every hour, every minute of your span of mortal years must sometime be accounted for. So I talked about the fact that Wilbur consecrated every minute of his time for years and years for the abolition of the slaves. It caused his health to suffer because he gave everything he had to the cause of the Lord. Thankfully, he was blessed to see the abolition of the slave trade in his lifetime, but even after that, he continued to still work tirelessly to try and make the world better. And that's what we need to remember as disciples, that our work is never finished, even when we accomplish one goal, that it continues to move forward.
Goodness, trying to get my speaker or my mic back on. Thank you, Megan. Yeah, I felt that he really lived a consecrated life and that he used his time here on earth very well. As you brought out, he was always fighting for those that didn't have a voice. Literally until he died, as far as what it said at the end. He was always working to make the world a better place, not only for his own family, but everybody's family. And I think he had built a family in which his children would grow up to continue his legacy and to carry on his work. And as far as the elements of a consecrated life that Elder Christofferson brought out, There was the element of work in his life, as far as he always did what he needed to. He was taking care of himself, but also his family at all times. Or himself and his family and others, sorry. He showed purity in not letting others, even as those that were on his side, convince him to act contrary to his beliefs. He showed service as he helped others. Respect for his body was a little bit transparent in the sense that he didn't want to take the medicine that he ended up taking because he knew the effect it would have on his body. And ultimately, he was able to overcome it once he had started taking it with with the Lord's help and his family to sustain him. He also showed great integrity. And again, just by not being swayed away from his values, even though others mocked him.
Okay, so all of the things that you guys have said in a more simple form, in a little bit of a different branch of what you guys have said. He was blessed. The Lord blessed him with community connections. He was blessed with a decent amount of physical health and financial well-being, definitely. And he had a willing heart. He had an active conscience to do God's will. And with that, all of those things in combination, he's basically unstoppable. So he was prepared. He was prepared. And just like Elder Christofferson has, said that, the Lord needs us to work and give everything that we can to help forward the Lord's cause. And that's exactly what Wilbur did.
So question number 9, any other profound thoughts or personal insights from the movie that are related to child and family advocacy? And for me, the biggest thing, it gave me hope to see things through. Things are very dark in the world right now, but it's like his wife said, well, wasn't his wife at the time, but there is always light after a great darkness. There's always morning. And so it's given me the faith I need to push forward and to not give up. And it also has reminded me the importance of family and how his family sustained him through his trials, through his efforts. And so our families can do that too for us too. And fighting for truth is never easy, but is worth every effort I can give it, because with the help of all of the other family advocates, we can help make the world a better place for everyone.
So is it my turn to go again? Okay, sorry. So I just, along with Rachel and the theme of that one great push, there was this line, or this section of the movie, I think it was Clarkson, who was sitting at the gravesite of, I'm assuming maybe his father or one of his family members who'd gone on before him. And he was basically having a conversation with the deceased person and saying, he was praying for new life. He was, he needed just one good push. And in my mind, that brought me to the sense of what it's kind of like the process of childbirth, where you're going through all of this turmoil and commotion and travail to bring this new life. And that's what this felt like to that one particular section with Clarkson, is that they were working so hard. They were travailing, so to speak, and just needed one good push to get that new policy to life. And that's the part that was a little additional personal insight that I gained, that was important to me.
So I had several different ones. First, I thought about Hinckley's quote where he's talked about, things aren't going to turn around overnight. They're going to turn around at like a generation or two. And we saw that in the movie. It took 15 years for him to cause that turnaround to happen when he started. And then another thought that I had was when John the preacher spoke of the slave traders talking to the slaves like apes. They just grunted at them. I thought about the ape video that we watched when I saw the ape go across the screen, but they asked, what apes are you missing? And that's what it reminded me of, is that we sometimes get so caught up in watching and doing what we're supposed to do or told to do that we don't see what's wrong right in front of us. So we have to pay attention so we can protect one another and our communities and families. And then another thing that stood out to me in the movie was when John said, "There will be no escape from power once I have it." And I felt like this was really like my motto for the class, because once I got all this knowledge, I was like, well, I can't just ignore this now. I can't ignore this anymore. And I felt like that really kind of sums up how I felt about this class.
Okay, so let's see, number 10 here. What was your understanding of the doctrine of the family at the beginning of the semester, and how has it changed? So at the beginning of the semester, it was vague. It was kind of like non-committal, like Megan was just saying, is that I was like, well, I don't know much, so I don't need to do much. And so I now understand way better how to advocate on social media. I know how to be more objective in my conversations, but informed, very informed, and ready to share that information with others. And I feel like it's helped me also to support what my husband does and what I want my children to be able to do, so I can be a better teacher to them as well.
So like Renee, I felt like a non-committal, I think, is a great word to say that. Because I said my understanding was purely like theory-based and kind of some of the family proclamation-based. I didn't have a lot of historical understanding of the family, and I did not have the ability to effectively defend the family. It would petrify me to even think about talking to others about topics that we wouldn't agree on when it came to the family, like same-sex marriage. So for me, it hindered a lot of relationships. Now I know my own definition of the family, and I really appreciate the family, a proclamation of the world, so much more than I ever have, because I know that it's an inspired document, not just because of the research, but because you can see God's hand in it when you look at the whole picture. Yeah, that's pretty much the sum of that question.
We've all had a lot of the same thoughts. Like you guys, when I started out, mostly family was just either blood or those who I chose to love. That was pretty much my definition of family. And yeah, it was important to me, but I really thought I only needed to worry about my own family. That, my family was the biggest priority, and so I didn't leave everybody else to make their own decisions. And because of this class, not only do I still value family and have a better definition, but I know that I need to not only fight for my family, but fight for other families, fight for everybody that wants to stand out for traditional families. And I better know how to do that. It used to just be from a religious side, but now it's from a informed citizen side, and that has truly helped me, I think, better value family overall in my life, in the world, and in the church again. So
Okay, last question, ladies. Picture your spouse and children, current or future. Write down some thoughts about how they will benefit from you taking this class. So I put down a lot of the fact that I will be teaching my children. I will be teaching them about their gender identity. I will be teaching them how to defend the family, about their civic duties, and I'm going to speak more openly with my husband about those same things. I actually quoted one of the things that I wrote down in my notes. I wrote down, children need to see you living the gospel and not just teaching it. When you pull together as a family during trials, there is added strength, there is more faith and more love and support within the family to face challenges. And that's how I feel about advocacy within my own home. And that's what I want to carry through after this class, is I want to carry through that bonding to protect and strengthen us as a family to help and protect other families.
Thanks, Megan. You're always a great example to me in your words. Both of you guys have been. For me, I thought about, I will value my family better. I don't have a family at this time, but definitely I will place greater value on them. I will be a better person for them because of this class and everything that I have taken for granted for so many years and now can't anymore. I will be a better example to them of true discipleship and how to be Christ-like when working in the world with others. I will be a better resource of knowledge on current issues to help my family know what's going on and how we can best help as a family. I will be able to help them to love all of Heavenly Father's children. You know, that's one of the main things that this class has given me, is better or more compassion for everybody. You know, all of their trials. We all have trials, whether it be in our own lives or nationwide, as far as those that are fighting for same-sex marriage and all of those rights. You know, we all have our struggles and we need to have compassion for that. And I will help them see the Lord's way truly is the best way, not only from a religious side, but an educated, research-based, informed perspective. And I will be a person that they will want to be with for eternity.
Okay, so the thoughts that I had was truly, like, I just feel like my husband, he has got, his mom is a political lady, and he's raised in a home with politics, and he's kind of in the situation where I really truly think that I'm going to be like Wilbur's wife. And I would have had a horrible attitude about it. Like, I would have been like, well, how come you're not home, or whatever, all that kind of stuff. So this has really, truly prepared me to support him. I just feel like he's going to be the guy that's going to be running for office or doing that kind of stuff. And so I know how important this is. I know that I wouldn't want anyone else to do that except for someone who, like my husband, who loves God and would never make a decision or choice that would go against God's plan. And my husband's got plenty of strategy to make his ways go right. So anyway, that's the way I feel like. I feel like this class has prepared me to support my family in the future.
All right, I'm going to end.